Through the day tomorrow, there will be some showers grazing the east coast of England, at times Pembrokeshire, Cornwall too, the eastern side of Northern Ireland. The showers in northern Scotland falling as snow over the hills, hail likely down to lower levels, and the wind slowly easing here, but nevertheless a cold wind blowing for much of the day. Temperatures only 6 or 7 for most places. Add on that wind, it feels even colder. Things turning pretty cold pretty quickly on Thursday evening, but up to the north, we're going to see wet weather pushing in. Some snow on the hills, and this zone of rain will slip its way steadily southwards during Friday. A lot of cloud around, outbreaks of rain, and increasingly windy. And increasingly, the showers turning back to snow over northern Scotland. So, a cause for concern as this weather turns very lively through Friday and Saturday. Low pressure heading through the North Sea. Look at those isobars pinching together. A Met Office wind warning in place across northern Britain on Friday, and more widely across the UK on Saturday. Gust of wind 50-60 miles an hour inland, stronger than that on the coast, could cause some disruption. If you're travelling on Friday or Saturday, keep up to date with the forecast.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, after I branded the migrant crisis a national emergency last night, will the tragic death of 31 migrants in the Channel today finally spur our government into action? We'll cross live to GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White in Dover next, and then we'll debate how on earth to tackle this growing crisis in the clash. As Michael Vaughan is axed from the Ashes coverage after unproven racism allegations made by Azim Rafiq, where is the outrage over the BBC acting as judge, jury and executioner? I'll tackle that in my digest before putting it to my superstar panel tonight. They are the Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel, the Conservative commentator Albion Mancona and the Royal reporter Daisy McAndrew. As Gareth Southgate finally addresses human rights abuses in Qatar, has the hypocrisy of our politically correct England squad finally been exposed? I think so, and so does Brendan O'Neill. He's tonight's outsider. As Kate and William lash out, will the royal family take more revenge over the bombshell documentary exposing the royal PR war? Royal editor Robert Jobson will look at the fallout from the princes and the press, and we'll compare notes on Tiaragate in Crown Jewels. What does the future hold for Boris, Trump and Ms Markle? Celebrity psychic Sally Morgan will bring a bit of fun to tonight's show as she gives her predictions for some of the Globe's most notable figures. Rod Liddle is uncancelled, discussing political correctness in publishing as Julie Birchall's controversial book on, ironically, cancel culture. It was cancelled, you know, finally hits the shelves. And will you follow this ridiculous new advice to take a lateral flow test before even going out to do the weekly shop or going to the pub? I say absolutely not, but we'll debate it. And the rest of today's burning questions in the media buzz. Plus, bring you a first look at tomorrow's front pages and crown the greatest Briton and Union jackass this Wednesday night. That's before the end of the show. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, let's go. Breaking tonight, at least 31 migrants were confirmed to have drowned by French police while trying to reach British shores hours after GBNews took this exclusive footage in the Channel. So the tragedy today is why yesterday I declared the migrant crisis a national emergency. And Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, finally appears to agree with me after calling an emergency COBRA meeting this afternoon. Let's get the latest now with GBNews Home and Security Editor Mark White, who has been on the Channel covering this very worrying story from the early morning. Mark, what's the latest?
Well, Dan, we knew that this was going to be a very significant day of migrant activity. We'd had 3 days of pretty atrocious weather in the Channel, so now that winds have died down and it was a bit calmer out there in the middle of the Channel, the boats were pushing off. Multiple boats from multiple beaches between Dunkirk, Calais and Boulogne. Now, this boat had set off about lunchtime from between Calais and Dunkirk. It had got to a point just before entering British waters when it was caught by a wave. As I say, the conditions are a bit better, but they're never ideal in the middle of the Channel. It was capsized somehow, those on board thrown into the water, and then there was a major search and rescue operation involving both the French maritime services and the UK, with British assets also rushing to the area to help in that search. And as you say, 30 plus people now confirmed dead, including a young child. It is absolutely horrific. And Dan, I know you've been asking, is it time to call this a national emergency and declare it as such? Well, I think it is now, in all but name, declared a national emergency, as evidenced by the fact that the Prime Minister chaired a meeting of that crisis cabinet COBRA in Downing Street today. He emerged after that to say that much more needs to be done to tackle the people traffickers, but also to urge France to do more.
I just want to say that I'm shocked and appalled and deeply saddened by the loss of life at sea in the Channel. I think that the details are still coming in, but more than 20 people have lost their lives, as you know. And my thoughts and sympathies are, first of all, with the victims and their families. And it's an appalling thing that they have suffered. But I also want to say that this disaster underscores how dangerous it is to cross the Channel in this way.
Well, Dan, as you have said, it is a very significant crisis. Nigel Farage and I, first thing this morning, wanted to go out knowing that there would be another surge of boats coming across as the weather improved. We were out in mid-channel when we came across this small boat with 22 people on board, mostly men, 2 women and a young child on that boat as well, from Iraq and Iran, they told us. And Nigel, with some ominous words of warning, said he believed it was only a matter of time before we were headed for a real tragedy, given the conditions out there.
These people took off from a French beach. The wind would have been straight on the shore. There would have been a little bit of a surf running. They would have taken water from the moment they left the beach. They must be, I mean, I'm not warm and it's damp and it's, you know, they must be very, very cold. And I would think, you know, a lot of people dying of hypothermia is a real risk.
So in terms of the boat that we intercepted, that had left from, we believe, the very same beaches where that boat that left and tragically, of course, capsized before it got into British waters. Well, this vessel, it cut its engines and waited to be rescued. I tried to speak to them. They weren't really communicating too much, but this is a sample of that conversation with those in the boat.
You're very tired? Yes.
Cold, very tired. And tired.
What time did you leave France today?
5 a.m. 5 a.m.
Where did you set off from? Dunkirk?
Calais.
So you heard there that they'd set off from Calais too, just like that other boat. That other boat, Dan, we understand was carrying mainly Kurds. Well, this boat too, we believe, the 22 on board that we intercepted was also carrying Iraqi and Iranian Kurds. They may well have known those who drowned in the Channel this afternoon.
Mark, a tragedy, sadly very predictable, and I have to say, well done on being on this story when the rest of the mainstream media wanted to look away right from the moment that you joined GB News. I do believe this is a national emergency, and I know you will stay on it. Mark White, a Home and Security editor, thank you so much. Later on, we will debate whether we now need to officially declare the migrant crisis a national emergency. That's in The Clash. But first, the rest of your news with Tamsin Roberts.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening. A man's been charged with the murders of a couple who were killed in Somerset. Stephen and Jennifer Chappell were stabbed to death in their home while their two young sons were asleep upstairs. 34-year-old Colin Reeves is due to appear at Taunton Magistrates Court tomorrow. Emergency services are warning people to keep their windows and doors closed after a huge fire in East Yorkshire. Footage posted on social media shows flames burning near residential properties and a large plume of smoke billowing over the town of Hessle. Fire crews are battling to get the blaze under control. Two police officers who shared crime scene photos describing the victims as dead birds have been sacked. Bieber Henry and Nicole Smallman were killed in northwest London in June last year. PC Jamie Lewis and Dennis Schaffer, who strayed from the cordon to take photos, admitted posting them on WhatsApp. A tribunal found them guilty of gross misconduct, describing their actions as shameful. Offenders who kill an emergency services worker while they're on duty will be given mandatory life jail sentences. The change in law follows a 2-year campaign by Lizzie Harper, whose husband, police officer Andrew, was killed while responding to a late-night burglary call. 3 teenagers were cleared of murder but convicted of manslaughter. And it's the shortest ever stint as Prime Minister. But Sweden's first female in the role has quit just hours after being selected. Magdalena Andersson resigned after suffering a budget defeat in Parliament. You're right up to date now. It's back to Dan.
What happened to the concept of employers sticking by their staff until someone is proven guilty of wrongdoing? The cancel culture sweeping the West has destroyed that very basic concept, especially at painfully politically correct organisations like the BBC. Today, the Beeb axed Michael Vaughan from its coverage of the Ashes after he was accused of making a racist comment over a decade ago. They've already yanked him from his role on BBC 5 Live. Now, you probably know that Vaughan has been accused of saying to 4 players of Asian heritage during a 2009 T20 match between Yorkshire and Nottinghamshire, there are too many of you lot. We need to do something about it. His ex-teammate, Azim Rafiq, made the allegation, which he repeated at an emotional select committee appearance.
I was a young kid from Pakistan, living in Barnsley, with a dream to represent England. Pretty early on at the club, I joined a dressing room full of my heroes. Michael Vaughan, Matthew Hoggard, part of the 2005 Ashes team, and it was just the most surreal moment for me. I entered that dressing room. Pretty early on, me and other people from Asian background, there was comments such as, "You lot sit over there near the toilets," and elephant washers. The word "paki" was used constantly, and there just seems to be an acceptance in the institution from the leaders, and no one ever stamped it out.
Now, two players back up his recollection, Adil Rashid and Rana Naveed ul Hassan. However, another player, Ajmal Shahzad, says he doesn't remember Vaughan making the comments, and Vaughan himself strongly denies them, saying in a statement, "I categorically deny saying the words attributed to me by Azim Rafiq and want to restate this publicly because the you lot comment simply never happened. It is extremely upsetting that this completely false accusation has been made against me by a former teammate, apparently supported by 2 other players. I've been in contact with the 6 other players from that team, and not one of them has any recollection of the remark being made." Footage on the day of the match shows Vaughan shaking hands and laughing with all 4 teammates, for what it's worth. But regardless of all that, the quick-to-cancel BBC announced today, while he is involved in a significant story in cricket for editorial reasons, we do not believe that it would be appropriate for Michael Vaughan to have a role in our Ashes team or wider coverage of the sport at the moment. We require our contributors to talk about relevant topics, and his involvement in the Yorkshire story represents a conflict of interest. So, translation there, Vaughan has lost a major job, and as a result, his reputation, at least for the moment, thanks to the BBC reacting to a disputed claim not backed up with any evidence. There are no receipts here. In fact, the only proof of racism we have involving anyone in the group is Azim Rafiq himself, who made historic anti-Semitic smears on social media at around the same time. Following his testimony, it emerged he had posted the racist comments towards Derbyshire player Atif Sheikh, who he accused of not paying a bill for dinner because, quote, he is a Jew. In now deleted comments on Facebook, which Rafiq has admitted to writing and apologised for, he wrote, "Ha ha ha, he is a Jew. Probs go after my second again. How wrong is that? Only Jews do that sort of S word." Look, I'm not saying for a single second that Rafiq's own racist comments undermine his harrowing testimony. And of course, any racism in cricket must be stamped out. But this situation shows the clear and present danger of making judgments on folk for comments they are purported to have made over a decade ago, relying on someone proven to have made anti-Semitic slurs himself. Shame on the BBC for, as ever, giving in to the cancel culture mob rather than backing a star employee like Michael Vaughan until any alleged wrongdoing is categorically proven. We must all stand up to this cancel culture madness because it's starting to destroy innocent people. To respond now, my superstar panel. Tonight, the columnist and broadcaster Amanda Patel, co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism for Equality, Albiam Ancona, and the political and royal commentator, Daisy McAndrew. Amanda Patel, the BBC's wrong here, aren't they?
The only thing that surprises me that it took them so long to get rid of him. I mean, Jesus, this happened like 10 days ago. I thought he'd be out like that.
Well, he was from Five Live.
Yeah, he was
fairness.
Immediately. And you know, you make the point very articulately that ultimately this is, you have to look at Azim's character as an accuser. And he is now a man who's been proved to be anti-Semitic. There are a bit of dodgy stuff about some alleged unwanted text messages he sent to a woman. So he's got this kind of history of not being a great guy, and he's able to take out a guy of pretty good reputation. I mean, shame on the BBC, but the greatest bit about it, and I laughed and laughed when I read this today, is that the boards walked straight into a cricketing job covering the Ashes for Sky Australia.
So he's fine in Aussie. He's fine in Aussie. He'll take the Aussie coin.
But don't you, I mean, you're a New Zealander. When I first came to Australia, I constantly got people saying to me, there are too many of you here. Why the hell are you taking our jobs? You know,
of course. I'm actually a dual British citizen.
And I kind of sucked it in.
I'm a dual British citizen, so I've got a British passport. All of my family's from here. They fought for World War II in Britain. I am subjected to casual racism about the fact that I was born in New Zealand and have this dual citizenship, and I have a funny accent on a daily basis. And I brush it off, and I don't try to get people cancelled. But look, Albie, my point is not undermining what Rafiq has said necessarily. It's saying to the BBC, what on earth has Michael Vaughan done for you to sack him from his job? Because you know that sacking is going to cause him fundamental reputational damage, even if he is still doing the job for the Aussies, who are a bit more relaxed.
We're more relaxed.
I don't think the BBC's got this wrong, actually. I think Vaughan has shown an astonishing lack of self-awareness here. Because I believe that those who show contrition should have redemption. And he
didn't say it, in his view.
It's been disputed by 3 people who were also there, so we can't just say that they're lying. We've got 3 people saying it did happen, one person who's the accuser saying it didn't happen, another person saying they didn't hear it or can't remember.
Well, no, and Vaughan says he's spoken to 6 other teammates who aren't prepared to go public. And why would you go public? Why would you go public when the cancel culture is out?
My point about self-awareness is, had he not written that ridiculous article in the Daily Telegraph and just stayed quiet, waited till the testimony happened, and then just apologised afterwards and shown contrition,
Albie,
he probably would still have his job.
You're suggesting that he should apologise for something that he insists did not happen.
And 3 others insist it did happen.
Doesn't mean it did.
But what would you do, Albie, if you were in that situation where you knew, you believed in your heart of heart that you had not done this and you had corroborating evidence? Would you say, I'm guilty to preserve my career?
But nobody's seen any corroborating evidence that he did it.
I would have stayed quiet. I would have said, look, I don't remember saying it, but if I did say it, I'm sorry from the bottom of my heart.
I would never say that in a million years.
I've learned, I will not say it again.
Because, Daisy, the worst thing Michael Vaughan could possibly do is admit to doing something that he doesn't believe he did.
Yeah, he doesn't believe he did it. I don't believe him, I'm afraid.
And that's your choice.
I just
Absolutely.
don't believe him.
That's your
I
choice, but
believe
you're not
the
his
other testimony.
boss.
No, I'm not
You're
his
not
boss.
his
But also,
boss.
I think the BBC is perfectly within its rights to say, until this story has been resolved one way or another, we cannot have one of our lead presenters being right in the centre of the storm. We all know, if politicians, journalists, once you become part of the story, whether you're Alistair Campbell, or a cabinet minister, it's always game over when you're part of the story. And yes, he might clear his name. He might be able to bring forward people who can prove that he didn't say this. And I'll be delighted if he's able to do that. But personally, I don't think he will.
Can you understand why a lot of folk are saying there seems to be a double standard here? Azim Rafiq is not being cancelled for his anti-Semitism over a decade ago, yet Michael Vaughan is being cancelled for a purported comment, which there is no proof of, because there is proof of Rafiq's anti-Semitism. There's no proof.
But Azim Rafiq has apologised and he has repented. And he has said that he was wrong.
He only apologised when he got found out. He didn't say, actually, by the way, guys,
yes, but
I've been an anti-Semite.
He didn't remember the comments either, did he?
Who doesn't remember?
He didn't remember the comments either. No. Michael Vaughan is saying he didn't remember saying it or that he didn't say it, but there were 3 other
comments are different to things which are written in Facebook.
But I tell you what, we must all agree is insidious. When anybody is brave enough to blow the whistle, whether it's a whistleblower, about childhood grooming, or whether it's a whistleblower about toxic behaviour in the House of Commons, you as the whistleblower, immediately your entire history is trawled over. You are turned over because people have an invested interest in making sure that your testimony is rubbish.
That is true, Daisy.
And that happens, and that has happened to Azim, and it's happened to Caroline Noakes this week, who I interviewed, who has accused people, MPs, and I just think that is disgusting, because that is why nobody is ever brave enough to say this is wrong, this behaviour is wrong. And I think that's what's the problem about this story and all the other stories like it.
Fascinating debate. Thank you, Daisy McAndrew, Albie Amankona, Amanda Platel. They are my superstar panel, and they are here all night. But also coming up, why are England's uber-woke footballers bottling it when it comes to taking the knee against real human rights abusers in Qatar? Brendan O'Neill is today's outsider, and he'll be exploring that in just a few minutes. But up next in The Clash, as the Prime Minister calls an emergency Cobra meeting after at least 31 migrants die in the Channel today alone. Isn't it time we called this crisis a national emergency? What do you think? Dan at gbnews.uk is my email, or you can vote at gbnews on Twitter. We'll debate that in a couple of minutes.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. A cold feel tomorrow, but generally a sunny day. Come Friday and Saturday, however, we're in for much livelier weather, very strong winds and some wet weather too. An area of low pressure is going to bring some snow showers through the night across northern Scotland, and actually here already turning very, very windy, those isobars squeezing together. For England and Wales at the moment, we've got this weather front sinking south. That's providing a lot of cloud and some drizzly conditions over the Midlands, South Wales and South West England through the evening. A bit of patchy rain later tonight for East Anglia and the South East. But behind that, clearer skies will bring a chill first thing. Temperatures down to 2 or 3 degrees. That's in towns and cities. Add on that wind and it really will feel pretty raw on Thursday morning. But generally it's a fine and sunny start. Now through the day tomorrow there will be some showers grazing the east coast of England, at times Pembrokeshire, Cornwall to the eastern side of Northern Ireland. The showers in northern Scotland falling as snow over the hills, hail likely down to lower levels, and the wind's slowly easing here, but nevertheless a cold wind blowing for much of the day. Temperatures only 6 or 7 for most places. Add on that wind, it feels even colder. Things turning pretty cold pretty quickly on Thursday evening, but up to the north we're going to see wet weather pushing in. Some snow on the hills, and this zone of rain will slip its way steadily southwards during Friday. A lot of cloud around, outbreaks of rain and increasingly windy. And increasingly the showers turning back to snow over northern Scotland. So a cause for concern as this weather turns very lively through Friday and Saturday. Low pressure heading through the North Sea. Look at those isobars pinching together. A Met Office wind warning in place across northern Britain on Friday and more widely across the UK on Saturday. Gust of wind 50-60 miles an hour inland, stronger than that on the coast, could cause some disruption. If you're travelling on Friday or Saturday, keep up to date with the forecast.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage. I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
The Clash now. And as you heard at the top of the show, breaking tonight, at least 31 migrants, including 5 women and a girl attempting to cross the English Channel, have reportedly drowned today. The Home Secretary tweeted, "My thoughts are with the families of all of those who have tragically lost their lives in French waters today. It serves as the starkest possible reminder of the dangers of these channel crossings organised by ruthless criminal gangs." Now look, I agree with Priti Patel. More does need to stop the senseless death that we saw today. by preventing illegal human traffickers from putting people's lives at risk in the first place. And as I said on the show yesterday, I believe the illegal migrant crisis is now a national emergency. Surely this tragedy today only reinforces that point. It makes a total mockery, this crisis, of our legal immigration system. And it also it puts the safety of the British public at risk too, which is just totally unacceptable. According to a YouGov tracker poll, 34% of people in Britain now see immigration and asylum as one of the 3 most important issues facing the country. So, should the British government declare the migrant crisis a national emergency officially? You can vote in our poll right now at GB News on Twitter, or Dan at gbnews.uk if you want to email me. But to debate now, to help you make your decision, I'm joined by Chairman of Migration Watch UK, Alp Mehmet, and Amnesty UK Refugee and Migrant Rights Programme Director, Steve Valdez-Simons. Alp, this tragedy today surely proves that the boats have to be stopped.
Absolutely. We've been saying that, I've been saying that for months and months now. If we want to save lives, we've got to stop the boats. There's no other way of doing it. For so long as people believe that they're going to get here and having reached the UK, they will stay here, be permitted to stay here, I'm afraid they will continue to come. And not only will they continue to come, but they will go up in numbers. That I would stake all sorts of things on. That will happen whether we like it or not. Until we show that it won't work, that getting to this country illegally will not allow you to stay here indefinitely, as is happening at the moment, you will keep coming.
Steve, what's wrong with what Alp and I are saying? What do you disagree with?
Firstly, there's nothing illegal about people seeking asylum by crossing a border without permission.
But that already in France,
that is the international law system.
But Steve, can I just clarify? Do you accept? Sorry, Steve. You can make your second point in 1 second, but I just want to clarify the first point. Do you accept that the people who are dying on the Channel and crossing the Channel in small boats already have asylum, according to international law, in France, a first world country?
No, and let's just make this absolutely clear. The circumstances of the people who make these journeys, unlike the great majority of people who are provided asylum in France, are woeful and desperate. They involve squalor, violence, often on a daily basis, and so there is thoroughly good reason for them to choose to seek asylum in this country rather than in France. And they are perfectly entitled to do so. And the fact that we make absolutely no provision for anyone to make a pre-authorized journey to come here to seek asylum only underscores why people make these dangerous journeys. And that brings us to the second point, which is that if we wish to stop horrible, horrific journeys like this, which I agree we should all want to see the end of, the only lawful and effective way of doing that is to provide people a safe alternative. And if we are not going to share responsibility by permitting some people to come here...
Is that open borders? That's what you're proposing, Steve? Because the British public don't want that.
There are a relatively small number of people in northern France who would wish to come here to seek asylum. We could certainly start by speaking to the French, identifying a good number of them to receive to our country and our asylum
Steve,
system.
let me bring Alp back on that. Alp, isn't that just going to exacerbate the problem?
Well, far be it for you to put words in my mouth, Dan. But
I'd never do that.
Yes, of course it will. The more people see that it's possible to get here, the sooner it will become overwhelmed, frankly. If people know that they will get to northern France and at that point they will be considered for asylum, we will have hundreds of thousands of people descending. We already have, frankly. There are 4 million and more people in the EU already who are looking for asylum. And let me just remind Steve that it was only in August this year that Ylva Johansson, the EU Commissioner, the Vice President, in fact, said that the vast majority of those who are seeking asylum are not refugees. She said that, not me.
Steve, how do you respond to that?
Well, firstly, it's utter nonsense that there are 4 million people in the EU seeking asylum, and it really doesn't help to make up statistics like that. Let's look at real statistics. The Home Office publishes them, as does the EU, as does the UN Refugee Agency. If we look at the data concerning this country, for example, and look at the people who have crossed the Channel over the last couple of years, we see that 2/3 and more of them, and an increasing proportion of them year on year, are indeed refugees and are found to be refugees. So no, we should deal with the data and the facts as they are, and understand that if we will not share responsibility for providing asylum, and we don't, France and other countries receive many more people into their systems than do we. If we will not do our bit, we will see more journeys like this, and I'm sorry to say, many more deaths of people.
Australia stopped the boats, and they did it by offshore processing. I have been advocating for offshore processing for some time. It is the biggest deterrent. I think that's what will stop the deaths. Do you agree? Do you agree, Alp?
Do I agree? I'm sorry.
Is offshore processing the solution?
Well, look, first of all, on the point that Steve made, on the 4 million, they're not my figures. I haven't made those up, if you don't mind. They are actually EU figures, and that was for 2017.
OK. We can take a look at those figures after. But Alp, I want to talk about solutions. I think offshore processing, rather than an open borders policy, which is what Steve is advocating, is what will stop the boats. What do you think will stop the boats, Alp?
The only thing that will stop the boats if we show that it doesn't work. Offshore processing, yeah, I have no problem with that. It's what happens afterwards at the end of the process. Will they then be returned to wherever they came from, or will the people involved be returned to their countries of origin? Unless you make those sort of decisions...
Well, the asylum system has to be sorted too, doesn't it? We've got the Home Secretary saying it's a complete mess. Well, I'm sorry, Pretty, it's up to you to resolve it. Final word to you, Steve.
Well, just let's think about offshore processing. The Australian government has spent literally billions of Australian dollars doing untold cruelty, quite frankly, to a relatively small number of people. And no, Australia has not seen an end to people coming to that country to seek asylum.
It stopped the boats, Steve, it did. Within 2 years, the boats stopped. And you know what? What is most cruel is allowing the people smuggling gangs to get a hold of this situation and to transport these poor folk into the Channel where they can drown in large numbers like we saw today. But thank you for having the debate. Chairman of Migration Watch UK, Alp Mehmet, and Amnesty UK Refugee and Migrant Rights Programme Director Steve Valdez-Simons. So who do you agree with? Tara via Twitter says it has been a national emergency for years, but we've had Labour encouraging illegal migrants and the Conservatives failing to do anything substantial to stop the stain of human trafficking. Mark, also via Twitter, it's an emergency in the sense it needs to stop. The government has let the people down over this. They either need to sort it or it's over for them. And Sharon says this is France's national emergency. They are basically aiding and abetting the smugglers in this racket by not intervening or preventing these crossings. Shame on Macron for playing Brexit politics with these people's lives. I couldn't agree more with that. Thank you, Shannon. And your verdict is now in. 82% of you agree with me that the migrant crisis is now a national emergency. Just 18% of you say it isn't. And we'll continue to cover it here on GB News. Coming up, celebrity psychic Sally Morgan will be bringing us a bit of fun. We need it today at 10:20. She gives her predictions for the futures of some of the globe's most notable figures. But next, in The Outsider, why are England's politically correct footballers keeping their mouths shut when it comes to taking the knee against real human rights abuses in Qatar? Brendan O'Neill has an idea, and he'll discuss it straight after the break.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage. I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Brendan O'Neill is tonight's Outsider. Now, Gareth Southgate, the right-on England manager, finally addressed the elephant in the room when he was asked how his knee-taking footballers can justify playing the World Cup in Qatar, one of the worst offenders for human rights, in less than a year's time.
It's a very complicated situation for us because we obviously have to go and work with people and represent the country in a foreign land. And when you're doing that, you've got to be you've got to be 100% sure of your facts when you're speaking. And that's not easy at the moment because it's hard to work through what's current, what's present, what's historic. We have a responsibility to represent our country in the right way. There are clear cultural differences between the two nations. It is hugely complex, but we will take the time to educate ourselves. And if we feel that there are areas that we can highlight and help, then clearly we've always tried to do that, and we would do that.
The hypocrisy is unbelievable. And in his new column for Spiked, Why England Players Won't Take the Knee Against Qatar, Brendan O'Neill says of Gareth's comments, what message does it send to Qatar's beleaguered gay community or its migrants who work in punishing conditions that famous footballers will take the knee for George Floyd, but not for them? And Brendan O'Neill joins me now. Brendan, you couldn't make this up, and I'm with you, by the way, and I've been very consistent on this. Footballers shouldn't get involved in politics at all for this reason, because as soon as they insisted on taking the knee throughout the Euros, despite a lot of public opposition, they now have to be accountable morally to wherever they play, whatever moral cause they take on. And I don't think they should have to do it, but this is a rod they've created for their own back.
Absolutely. You know, when you start pretending to be these virtuous people, bending down and taking the knee and standing up against injustice, then people are naturally going to ask you, well, why aren't you standing up against other forms of injustice? And in fact, worse forms of injustice. So in Qatar, Gareth Southgate says we're going to educate ourselves. It shouldn't take him very long. In Qatar, if you are a gay person, you can be jailed for up to 3 years. If you're a woman, you have to ask a male guardian for permission to do the most basic things. Women don't have rights. If you are a migrant worker, you will work in the most extraordinarily punishing conditions for poor pay, and you risk your own life and health. So these facts are all out there. They're widely known. And yet Gareth Southgate says it's complicated, which he never said about Black Lives Matter, a deeply unpopular movement, which is what taking the knee represents. He never said it about the United States. He never said it about any of the issues that footballers have been taking a stand on recently. But when it comes to Qatar, he kind of hangs his head and says, well, we're not sure if we'll take a protest. It really stinks of hypocrisy, actually.
No, it completely does. And you know what, Brendan? Guess what it comes down to? Moolah, the big bucks, because that's what footballers really care about. Have a look at this.
We as a nation do a lot of business with Qatar as well. I was reading about Rolls-Royce, 10,000 new jobs, heavy investment from Qatar into green machinery and the way of working. So,
oh, Brendan, they make Rolls-Royces, so of course we have to support them and turn a blind eye to the fact that being gay is illegal, to the fact that females who are raped in Qatar often end up going to jail themselves because they had sex out of wedlock. Forget that, because they make Rolls-Royces.
I mean, you couldn't ask for a better illustration of how shallow and hypocritical wokeness is, because basically what he's saying is, they're helping us make cars for rich people, so let's not mention all the terrible things that they're doing. Business and money clearly trump principle when it comes to this kind of woke posturing. And, the thing is that there are lots and lots of people in Qatar. As you said at the beginning, I don't think footballers should be doing politics at all. Get off your knees, play football, score some goals. That's your job. That's why we love you. That's why we find it entertaining. But there is this double standard. There's a double standard where you're allowed to bash America, you're allowed to bash Britain, you're allowed to call us horrible, racist countries where all the Neanderthals have to be re-educated by these woke footballers. But when it comes to an Islamic regime like Qatar, which has an extraordinarily repressive government system, then they just go remarkably quiet. So that double standard, I think, is really going to rub people up the wrong way. And lots of people are going to be asking questions about the football players now.
And they set themselves up for this, Brendan. I mean, I can't believe David Beckham either, by the way. It's astonishing to me. He's taking £150 million direct from the Qataris to become one of the faces of the World Cup. I mean, this is the bloke, Brendan, who posts on Instagram anytime he's wearing, a Pride T-shirt to try and look woke. They don't really care about morals, because if they did, someone like Beckham would turn down this money.
You have a situation now where footballers in the UK will wear rainbow laces to show how pro-LGBT they are, how pro-pride they are, and then they will happily play football in a country like Qatar, where, by the way, there's still a death penalty for homosexuality. It's not being enforced at the moment. It's incredibly rare. It hasn't happened for a long time, but it's on their statute books. It's on their statute books, and they're going to play in that country. So when people like David Beckham take a lot of money from Qatar and then try and pretend to be these very pro-LGBT people, I think actually what's going to happen in the next few months and right through till next year is the woke posturing of sportsmen is going to collapse, and lots of people are going to see through it, and they're going to see that what a pose it was, and how shallow it was, and how shallow virtue signaling more broadly is. Virtue signaling is summed up by the fact that you wear rainbow laces on your football boots, and then you play football in a country where there are gay men in prison simply for being gay. And if that's what virtue signaling and wokeness is all about, it's not surprising most people reject those things.
Brendan O'Neill, I couldn't agree more. Tonight's Outsider will speak again next week. Thank you, Brendan. But coming up, will Boris Johnson hang on as PM? Will Trump return to the White House? Sally Morgan, the celebrity psychic, gives her predictions on the future of some of our biggest names. And will the royal family take more revenge over the bombshell documentary exposing the royal PR war. Royal editor Robert Jobson will look at the fallout from the princes and the press. And we'll compare notes on our views of Tiaragate, which featured in the documentary. That's in Crown Jewels next.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. A cold feel tomorrow, but generally a sunny day. Come Friday and Saturday, however, we're in for much livelier weather, very strong winds and some wet weather too. An area of low pressure is going to bring some snow showers through the night across northern Scotland, and actually here already turning very, very windy, those isobars squeezing together. For England and Wales at the moment, we've got this weather front sinking south. That's providing a lot of cloud and some drizzly conditions over the Midlands, South Wales and southwest England through the evening. A bit of patchy rain later tonight for East Anglia and the southeast. But behind that, clearer skies will bring a chill first thing. Temperatures down to 2 or 3 degrees. That's in towns and cities. Add on that wind and it really will feel pretty raw on Thursday morning. But generally it's a fine and sunny start. Now through the day tomorrow there will be some showers grazing the east coast of England, at times Pembrokeshire, Cornwall too, the eastern side of Northern Ireland. The showers in northern Scotland falling as snow over the hills, hail likely down to lower levels, and the wind slowly easing here, but nevertheless a cold wind blowing for much of the day. Temperatures only 6 or 7 for most places. Add on that wind, it feels even colder. Things turning pretty cold pretty quickly on Thursday evening, but up to the north we're going to see wet weather pushing in. Some snow on the hills, and this zone of rain will slip its way steadily southwards during Friday. A lot of cloud around, outbreaks of rain and increasingly windy. And increasingly the showers turning back to snow over northern Scotland. So a cause for concern as this weather turns very lively through Friday and Saturday. Low pressure heading through the North Sea. Look at those isobars pinching together. A Met Office wind warning in place across northern Britain on Friday and more widely across the UK on Saturday. Gust of wind 50-60 miles an hour inland. Stronger than that on the coast. Could cause some disruption. If you're travelling on Friday or Saturday, keep up to date with the forecast.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Crown Jewels time now with journalist and royal author Robert Jobson. Now, a bombshell new BBC documentary exposing the royal PR war has left the firm spitting feathers, with William and Kate reportedly banning the corporation from airing their charity Christmas concert in response. Now, believe it or not, both myself and Jobbo have found ourselves in the middle of the controversy over the princes and the press. We usually agree on most royal matters, but when we gave slightly differing accounts of the infamous Tiaragate row in the run-up to Meghan and Harry's wedding, the BBC thought they had a gotcha moment. Here's what went down. Now, let me bring Jobbo in. He's currently in Barbados, by the way, covering the nation's Republic celebration events, which will be attended by Prince Charles and see the removal of the Queen as head of state. But he's beaming in so we can straighten all this out. Now, Jobbo, I have to say, I don't really feel like we disagreed. You didn't say specifically that the Queen also didn't reprimand Prince Harry about Meghan, did you?
No, I think Emma got it wrong. I mean, basically, I wrote in the book Charles at 70, the expression "what Meghan wants, Meghan gets." Prince Harry, as you said, with the more detail that you got later on, Meghan had looked at a tiara, thought she liked that one, and when the person involved decided. When Harry went to see the person involved, who was a Queen's aide, and said, that's the one she wants, they were told you can't have it. And when he said that, Harry exploded and got upset, and that's where what Meghan wants, Meghan gets came from. That's where I used it in the book. And it was him that got ticked off about basically putting an aide in a difficult position because they're not really allowed to answer back. And it showed you that really they were upset just before. There was a lot of volatility and conflict just before the wedding. And I'm not saying it was necessarily Meghan's fault at all, but Harry was behaving in a very, shall we say, odd way.
Yes,
and I don't think that contradicts what you said at all.
No, I absolutely not, because I agree with all of that. And all I simply added, and I absolutely stand by the story, is that the Queen also made the point that Meghan needed to be careful about her behaviour, and I think she did it in a
I mean, all I got was that. That's what I wrote in the book. I mean, and then when you broke added to the story and got broke the story on Tiara Gate as it became known. I mean, literally, it was a few paragraphs in a book about Prince Charles. It wasn't a book about Meghan or Harry. That exploded. The story became a huge Tiara Gate, and then everyone went wild. So I don't think we contradict each other at all. I think that was the BBC. Divide and rule in.
Yeah, indeed. Now, what do you make of the big row over the documentary, Jobbo? The royal family very unhappy about it, and the Sun reporting last night that Kate and William have moved their Carols concert from the BBC to ITV. Why are they so annoyed about this?
I must be honest. I mean, I don't normally defend the BBC, but I feel Emma did a pretty good job in trying to get a fairly balanced look at what was been going on in the royal family. With all these dramatic events like Brexit and all these things, a relationship with the press it's been damaged. I think he did a pretty good job. And I think it was pretty accurate what he was saying, most of it anyway. And I don't see what the royal family they can't do it. I can't see how they think they can control the narrative.
Jobbo, what about the fact, and we just saw it in that clip, there's that snivelling, odd little weirdo, Omid Scobie, who claims he's a journalist, but he's basically a mouthpiece these days for Meghan. And also Meghan's lawyer, who works for Shillings. Yeah. They were both interviewed for the documentary. So could you not argue
there wasn't the other side,
wasn't someone commented on behalf of the royal family? Because we're journalists. We're not there to represent the position of the royal family.
Well, then the royal family should have put someone up to represent them, shouldn't they? They should have gone on record and said it. I don't see how the three palaces joining together as they have, which I think is all a bit farcical anyway. They should all be under one banner, Buckingham Palace, with one person in the top, and as it used to be, and therefore it'll be a far more simple situation. I think that they just can't control a narrative of a BBC Two documentary about Brexit, which is in the public domain. Equally, they can't control the narrative of what Princess Diana wanted to say when she spoke to Martin Bashir. I mean, the fact is she hadn't spoken to Martin Bashir. I can assure you, having been a journalist around at the time, she would have spoken to somebody else. And she would have said exactly the same thing. So I really don't see how William banning them from some carol concert or any of these other future events, it's really going to make any difference. It's a daft way of going about things.
It's sort interesting you raised Bashir, though.
Poor PR.
Yeah, it's interesting you raised Bashir, though, Jobber, because Camilla Tominey, who's obviously a senior executive at the Daily Telegraph, does a lot of coverage of royal events. She has written a piece today saying that she was interviewed for this documentary over a year ago. I was interviewed for the documentary over a year ago as well. And what that means is that we were unable to comment on two very significant stories. First, the BBC's appalling behaviour over the Bashir documentary. And second, the fact that it's been exposed in court that Meghan likes to tell lots of porcupines. So it's a bit disingenuous, isn't it, that we weren't allowed to comment on those more recent developments?
I think from what, I mean, I know Amor from when he was editor of The Independent, and, you know, I like him personally.
So
he's a sharp guy. And I think in the last few weeks, he's tried to, I think, get that balance across in the second part. And I'm sure the whole Bashir thing will be addressed. I mean, he went on record, didn't he, and pretty much slated that the BBC had been deeply scarred by this. So I'm sure that will be addressed. That said, I just think the Palace vote totally overreacted and made the story and made the viewing figures for this particular show, which is quite interesting for the likes of you and I, and discussing the ins and outs of royal, behaviour and press and relationships. All they've done is increase the viewing figures by masses. So, and I don't think that they should really be in control of narratives. I mean, no, all those journalists on that programme were telling the truth from their perspective as much as they can get. It's not always easy with the way that things are spun. And I think that it was a fairly interesting programme. But we'll see what the second half comes out with.
Exactly.
But, I do think that they've got themselves a bit hot under the collar. They've got themselves a bit overly hot under the collar.
Yeah, and as you said, it's great news for Amol, Rajan, because the ratings through the roof. Jobber, enjoy Barbados with Prince Charles. Hopefully we'll talk about that next week. It's 10 o'clock, still to come on Dan Wootton tonight. What should be done to stop more tragic deaths in the Channel after the loss of 31 migrants today? We'll debate that with my superstar panel, the Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel, the Conservative commentator Albi Amankona and the Royal reporter Daisy McAndrew. Also on the way, will you follow the new official advice and take a COVID test before you go shopping or head to the pub? We'll debate that in the Media Buzz. Rod Liddell is uncancelled tonight and he'll be discussing political correctness in publishing as Julie Birchall's controversial book on cancel culture finally hits the shelves, ironically, after it was cancelled. What does the future hold for Boris and Trump? Celebrity psychic Sally Morgan will give her predictions about the future of some of the world's most notable people. And we'll also be bringing you a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. And don't go anywhere, because we're revealing this Wednesday's greatest Briton and Union Jackass 2. But first, the news at 10 with Tamsin Roberts.
Good evening. Your top stories this hour. The Prime Minister says he's shocked, appalled and deeply saddened following the deaths of at least 30 migrants trying to cross the English Channel. The drownings come as British authorities continue to intercept an increasing number of boats approaching the UK. Our Home and Security Editor Mark White reports from Dover.
Heading out into the Channel shipping lanes at the start of a day which would end in terrible tragedy for a migrant boat that left the shores of Calais. This is the story of our day on the Channel, an encounter with another boat out of Calais, one which did make it safely to the UK. And by daylight, as Border Force and lifeboats are already responding to numerous sightings, we spot this small boat crossing into British waters. They tell us they're from Iraq and Iran, that they set off from Calais at 5 a.m. Now they've reached UK waters, the people smugglers will have told them It's just a matter of being picked up by British authorities. Those on board showed us a small child who they said was suffering from exposure to the cold. The boat skipper radioed those concerns to the Coast Guard.
It's my blanket because she's really, really cold.
But with Border Force and lifeboats already offloading those they picked up at Dover and at Dungeness, or responding to other incidents, any response here will have to wait. A Coast Guard helicopter assessed the scene an hour and a half after we first reported this migrant vessel, before the Dover lifeboat arrived shortly after that. As we left those on board this inflatable to be picked up by the Dover lifeboat and headed back to port, more calls on the radio, more sightings of other small boats, and of course the tragic events near Calais, which will place extreme pressure on both the British and French authorities. Mark White, GB News in the English Channel.
A man's been charged with the murders of a couple who were killed in Somerset. Stephen and Jennifer Chappell were stabbed to death in their home while their two young sons were asleep upstairs. 34-year-old Colin Reeves is due to appear at Taunton Magistrates Court tomorrow. Emergency services are warning people to keep their windows and doors closed after a huge fire in East Yorkshire. Footage posted on social media shows flames burning near residential properties and a large plume of smoke billowing over the town of Hessle. Fire crews are battling to get the blaze under control. Two police officers who shared crime scene photos describing the victims as dead birds have been sacked. Bieber Henry and Nicole Smallman were killed in northwest London in June last year. PC Jamie Lewis and Dennis Jaffa, who strayed from the cordon to take photos, admitted posting them on WhatsApp. A tribunal found them guilty of gross misconduct, describing their actions as shameful. Offenders who kill an emergency services worker while they're on duty will be given mandatory life jail sentences. The change in law follows a 2-year campaign by Lizzie Harper, whose husband, police officer Andrew, was killed while responding to a late-night burglary call. 3 teenagers were cleared of murder but convicted of manslaughter. And it's the shortest ever stint as Prime Minister. But Sweden's first female in the role has quit just hours after being selected. Magdalena Andersson resigned after suffering a budget defeat in Parliament. Well, you're right up to date. Back now to Dan Wootton.
Tomorrow's News Tonight now in our Media Buzz. But first, new front pages hot off the press. The Financial Times has just dropped, and of course, now leading on the tragedy in the Channel, as at least 31 migrants die during the crossing. Boris Johnson said he was shocked and appalled and said it was the time for Britain and France to step up to do everything we can to break these gangs. That is what I have been saying literally for months. And this is a very important question posed by the Metro. Why didn't France stop them? At the end of the day, we're paying them £54 million to stop the boats. And Macron is playing this political game because he wants to cause trouble for the post-Brexit Britain. And there's now 31 people dead. It's disgusting stuff, and we'll talk about it very shortly. But let me welcome back my superstar panel now. The Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel, co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism for Equality, Albion Ancona, and the political commentator Daisy McAndrew. COVID coercion is being ramped up in time for Christmas as people are ridiculously now being urged to take lateral flow tests before festive shopping or even going to the pub. So just when we thought life was getting back to normal, government guidance now advises people to use the rapid tests if they are entering a high-risk situation. Apparently a high-risk situation now is going Christmas shopping or to your Christmas party. How joyful, folks. A spokesperson for the UK Health Security Agency claimed the rapid test will give us peace of mind as we try and celebrate a normal Christmas after it was cancelled last year. But what's normal about constant testing and totally hysterical fear-mongering, Amanda Patel?
I'm not getting hysterical, Dan.
So you're not going to do it?
My pub has a very big outdoor space, which I frequent, and I have no intention of doing any Christmas shopping this year. I've made a vow that I am going to instead give away all the presents that my ex-boyfriends and fiancés gave me.
Can I have them?
No,
I'll take the Ferrari.
There's a couple of Hermes bags and things like that. They're Mulberry.
Daisy, you can
I am not going to do any Christmas shopping, and I would encourage everyone to stop this consumerism, look into your homes, find beautiful things. One thing I'm going to give to a friend is a Bible that my mum had as a child. So I think, don't go out shopping.
No, that's lovely.
Shop in your own home.
It's lovely. A slight diversion, though. Are you going to stick one of those damn things up your nose before you go to the pub?
I've got to tell you, Dan, nothing's going up my nose this Christmas.
No snow. Albie.
What does he mean, Alfie?
I have no idea what he means, Amanda. So I think the key word here is advice. It's just advice from the government.
But people take advice seriously.
It's not being mandated.
They do.
I would be against if it was being mandated, but it's just advice. I might follow the advice because I don't want there to be a COVID spike, and I'd very much like to spend Christmas with my grandmother this year. So I might follow the advice, and I would hope that other people might follow the advice out of their own choice as well.
Daisy, I think we're becoming, as a nation, addicted to testing. We need to break the chain. It's costing so much money. I completely agree. For example, I entered a care home at the weekend, and I hate the testing. I refuse to do it. But I entered a care home, so I did the COVID lateral flow test beforehand. But coming to work, getting on the tube, going to the pub, going to the shopping mall, hell no.
Having said that, I would much rather we had all this testing than we had COVID passports to go to the pub or the shop or a party. And I think this is much fairer because it doesn't depend on your vaccination status. It depends on whether or not you're carrying COVID at the time. And I mean, I'm not going to do a test if I'm going to a big department store or something like that. But for instance, I've got friends who are having a party at Christmas, and she phoned my girlfriend phoned me and said her husband has been shielding and is very, very concerned about COVID, and they're having their first party of lockdown. And she said, do you think it sounds ridiculous? Do you think it's stupid to ask people to take a lateral flow before they come to our party in our house? And I said, no, it's not. That's not unfair at all. You're nervous. It's your house. You're putting on all the food and the booze and all the rest of it. It's the least your friends can
but
do
don't
for
expect
you.
any presents for Christmas.
But I think if it's about reassurance I think it's fine.
That's a unique circumstance because you're talking about someone who has been shielding. But when it comes to normal life, I really think we need to break this chain.
Me too.
Because we get on the tube, we come to work, and you can't avoid viruses. We've never been able to avoid viruses. And I think in a lot of these conversations, we forget that well over 90% now of adults up and down the UK have COVID antibodies. Over a quarter of people already have the COVID booster. So the testing addiction just needs to stop. Now, I was speaking about it just before the news, but I want to go back to the BBC's War with the royal family over their bombshell documentary. And that's for a particular reason. It was called Princes and the Press. It aired on Monday. And it wasn't just me and Robert Jobson who featured in it. It was also our very own Daily Mail superstar columnist Amanda Patel. But did she come out unscathed? Have a look. Oh, I think I'm going to confuse Amol, because I do opinion and I do news. So you're the opinion woman. How do you feel about your portrayal in this documentary?
It's like I'm sort of some Svengali-esque that goes out and says, here are your little minds readers, and I'm going to twist them and make you think that Kate is wonderful and that Meghan, however you want to pronounce it.
Well, that's what you were doing, right? Isn't that what you were doing in that column?
No, what I was doing is I was observing the relationship between Kate and Meghan, which had been going for a little while then, and just saying it wouldn't be human. You know, if you had a really, really hot sister-in-law who rocked up and you're doing all the dodgy, dowdy hard work, and all she has to do is kind of flick her ponytail, and she's on the front pages of all the papers, who would not feel... But
Were you nervous about taking part, given it's the BBC?
I've got to say that I was nervous, and I insisted on some caveats with it. I said, I'm not going to You're not going to trap me into saying things because originally, this is the thing not a lot of people realise, is this was originally mooted in March, filmed in April.
Well, I filmed mine over a year ago. Mine was last year.
Which I think is, I have to say, despite the fact that Amal is like a wonderful guy, I think it's really dishonest.
Yeah.
That they talk that
so much has changed.
And the whole thing, it was filmed. It was going to be largely about Princess Diana and the relationship between the princes, and I have WhatsApp evidence for that. And then suddenly Prince Philip died, and they said the whole thing's been canned. We don't know when it will come back. We had no participation. We were not then phoned and said, would you like to revise what you've been filmed doing 7 months ago?
It's gone through a lot of incarnations, and I do understand.
And that's dishonest, Dan. That's actually dishonest.
Yeah, well, because for me, Daisy, and I'm really interested in your take on this, given that one of your roles is, of course, as an American royal commentator, and they feel very differently about Meghan.
They do.
Or Megan, as Amanda calls her.
You know, they just call her Megan from now on.
Megan. That's what the people behind the scenes at Kensington Palace were calling her.
Calling herself
Megan.
Meghan, because she became part of the royal family.
She became posh. But Daisy, I do think it's bad that someone like me wasn't given the opportunity to talk about the Bashir BBC scandal and Meghan's porky pies to Oprah and Meghan's porky pies in court. But what's your overall verdict on this documentary?
So my verdict when I watched it was I couldn't believe how the palace had got their knickers in such a twist about it. Because if you watched it, I think, with quite an analytical eye, the palace came out of it well and the press came out of it badly overall. Of course, there were elements, like the sort of briefing of journalists that the boys were accused of. We know that that's going to get right up their nose and they're not going to like that at all. But all the stuff that was, I think most people watching it would have been really shocked by, the private investigator talking about how he had hounded Chelsea Davy and tried to find out whether she'd had an abortion and was following her. Those were really shocking elements that I think people watching would have been very sympathetic to the royal family and thought that is no way to live for teenagers who are going out with royals or who are royals. And so I think actually they really overreacted to that thing. I think the fact that it was done a year ago, nobody knew that when you watched it, and I think they probably should have made that clear. Or, as you said, given people an opportunity to bring it up to date.
They never asked us to clarify anything in the light of the things that had happened. And they didn't tell us also that Meghan's shilling solicitor in London would be invited onto the show and be asked one question, which is Meghan a lying, bullying, wretched woman? And she said, absolutely not. But no counter question, nothing.
And I also think
that Toby Scobie guy, that Star Wars guy, crikey, he was just allowed to pretend he's a journalist.
I know, and he's not a journalist. He's not a journalist. He's basically a PR person, but for Harry and Meghan. Let's be honest. Daisy, McAndrew, LBM Ancona, Amanda Patel, thank you so much, and do stand by. Coming up next, though, what does the future hold for Boris, Trump and Ms Markle? Celebrity psychic Sally Morgan gives her predictions for some of the Globe's most notable figures. And after I branded the migrant crisis a national emergency last night, will today's tragic death of 31 migrants finally spur the government to take some meaningful action? We'll debate that as the Media Buzz continues.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. A cold feel tomorrow, but generally a sunny day. Come Friday and Saturday, however, we're in for much livelier weather, very strong winds and some wet weather too. An area of low pressure is going to bring some snow showers through the night across northern Scotland, and actually here already turning very, very windy, those isobars squeezing together. For England and Wales at the moment, we've got this weather front sinking south. That's providing a lot of cloud and some drizzly conditions over the Midlands, South Wales and South West England through the evening. A bit of patchy rain later tonight for East Anglia and the South East. But behind that, clearer skies will bring a chill first thing. Temperatures down to 2 or 3 degrees. That's in towns and cities. Add on that wind and it really will feel pretty raw on Thursday morning. But generally it's a fine and sunny start. Now through the day tomorrow there will be some showers grazing the east coast of England, at times Pembrokeshire, Cornwall to the eastern side of Northern Ireland. The showers in northern Scotland falling as snow over the hills, hail likely down to lower levels, and the wind's slowly easing here, but nevertheless a cold wind blowing for much of the day. Temperatures only 6 or 7 for most places. Add on that wind, it feels even colder. Things turning pretty cold pretty quickly on Thursday evening, but up to the north we're going to see wet weather pushing in. Some snow on the hills, and this zone of rain will slip its way steadily southwards during Friday. A lot of cloud around, outbreaks of rain, and increasingly windy. And increasingly, the showers turning back to snow over northern Scotland. So, a cause for concern as this weather turns very lively through Friday and Saturday. Low pressure heading through the North Sea. Look at those isobars pinching together. A Met Office wind warning in place across northern Britain on Friday, and more widely across the UK on Saturday. Gust of wind 50-60 miles an hour inland, stronger than that on the coast, could cause some disruption. If you're travelling on Friday or Saturday, keep up to date with the forecast.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Now, you know, a week is a long time in politics, but that's not going to stop us taking a fun look at what the future might hold for some of the most notable politicians in the world, as well as royal turned potential future President Meghan too. So let me bring in psychic to the stars and Britain's best loved medium, Sally Morgan, author of the Amazon bestseller Secret Spirit, who's going to make some predictions tonight about what's next for Boris Johnson, Donald Trump, Keir Starmer, Meghan Markle, and GB News' own Nigel Farage. And me, maybe. And me too. So here's the book, by the way. Aww. Here's the book, already flying high on Amazon. So, Sally, tell me, how do you do this? How do you read the futures of folk? What's your secret?
Well, there is no secret. It's as in there. I tell you how. We've all got this innate psychic ability, and we tend to ignore it because for many reasons. And one reason is you think people might laugh at you, or you're fearful of it, and
you just know how to tap into it.
Well, yes, but I think for me with my work, it's about harnessing energy around the individual. That's what I think.
Okay. Well, look, I want you to go with some famous folk.
Yeah,
okay?
why not? Let's
do some reading. So let's kick off with the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. He's had a very tough couple of weeks.
Yeah.
What do you predict?
Well, before he had the tough couple of first week, the last 2 weeks. I actually think he's coming to the end of his reign, you could say.
No way.
Yeah, I do. I think one of the reasons for that is his family, his lovely wife, and I think his immediate family are concerned for his health and his mental well-being. And for a good 2 months, I've been saying that he is thinking, do you know what? I've had enough. I mean, there's so much bravado that goes with being Prime Minister, isn't there? There has to be.
Big time.
But I think he's coming to the end of that.
What about Donald Trump over in the States?
Yeah, well, Donald, that's another thing altogether.
The
Donald. He arrogantly believes that he can run again, and I do think he will make noises, but there will be at least 2 huge scandals connected to women, what else, that will really put paid to that. I think that the people that back him financially are just going to sort of like, oh, no way.
Really?
Oh,
Although
yeah.
a scandal has never stopped the Donald before.
Well, I think
he seems to revel in them.
Yeah.
OK, what about that woman, Meghan? You know, she likes to call herself the Duchess of Sussex.
Well, she does when she wants to, doesn't she? I think that, and I've said this right from the word go, they will always be together.
Really?
Yeah, I do not think
Oh,
that
see, I predicted, and I stand by it, that they'll break up 10 years after the marriage.
I don't think he will ever give the children up.
No.
And for their marriage to break up whenever, I think that, you know, there's no doubt about it, they're going to hit rocky roads, like we all do. But I think that they will stay together. And
is she going to be president?
No.
No. Okay.
No. I think that she will listen to that, but she will listen to a lot of things that are really fantasy. Because at times she does live in her own little world.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, she does.
And
she lives in the little Meghan world. Meghan world. She enjoys it there. OK, let's come close to home. Nigel Farage, he's one of the big stars at GB News. He hosts Farage at 7 o'clock every night. Lots of people are saying, though, maybe he'll get back into politics. What are you predicting, Sally?
I don't think he will. I think that he's had enough of politics.
I think you're right.
And I think that he now feels that his life is on a far better path. He has it's almost, once again, the in saying mental health. He's so much better since he's been out of. But I think that his work, like yours, is going to change slightly. So that gives him a new, in the new year, around about April, May.
Oh, no.
There are big changes.
Don't tell the bosses that.
Well, I think the bosses already know, in a way. And I think that there's going to be big changes. I'm not saying it's going, per se, but I think there's going to be massive changes. You wanted the truth.
No, I always want the truth.
You wanted the truth.
I always want the truth. OK, so, Sally, are you picking up my energy?
Well,
Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
I do feel your energy, darling.
OK, and what are you predicting for me?
Well, what I'm...
You can be honest.
I do.
I can deal with it.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, and you can call it a prediction. The first thing that I want to say to you is, do whatever the changes that are coming in your life, which there are some that are huge. A lot of them happened in September, at the beginning of September, and that sort of circumstances repeats itself in February and March. And I want you to do what you know inside is the right thing. It may not be what the powers that be, as in agents, managers, the people at the top want for you, but you need to do what you need to do. You will work in America, darling.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in a big way.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I've never seen that in my future, Sally.
Well, yeah. Have you ever worked there before?
Be nice, though. No, well, I've gone to America a lot to work, but I've never actually lived in America.
Okay,
what about my personal life? What's happening with my personal life?
Well, your personal life, the thing is that you are... you don't let people in properly. I mean, you want the dream, you know, you want the cosy family at home with the husband, the partner, whatever. But you don't really let people in. You're very, very nervous because you've been really hurt, darling, in the past.
That's true.
Yeah. Is there somebody called Oliver?
No.
And no one. Is there anyone called like Ollie?
No. Oh, there is one person called Ollie. An old friend of mine?
You need to be in touch with him.
Okay.
And I think that something to do with him reinvigorates your personal life.
Oh.
I mean, did you have a thing with him?
No.
No.
Just pals.
Just pals. Oh, well,
Yeah.
there's something there that to do with him, and you will be in touch with him because I've just said that, because you're that sort of person.
Yeah.
I mean, you're incredible.
I am very happy, though, at the moment.
Yeah, but
Sally.
you're incredibly...
Very happy.
Yeah, but you're very nosy.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I'm a journalist.
Well,
you know.
no, but I mean, you are like... I mean, well... You're also your personal life as well, you're like that, which is very endearing, I have to say. Very endearing.
Okay.
Maybe not as endearing as in your work life. I need a photograph of your happiness at home. That's what I need.
OK, I'm going to send it to you.
Yeah, I need a photograph, and I can tell you.
And is my cat Dirk going to be OK?
Oh, yeah, what's the matter with him?
No, he's absolutely fine.
Fine, yeah, well, he's got a bit of a dodgy eye, the right eye.
Oh, OK, I'll check it out.
So, well, you sort of... I mean, you must have noticed that.
Well, we have worried that he might be going blind. So she's on to something, folks.
Yeah.
And this is why Sally Morgan's Secret Spirit is already an Amazon bestseller. Sally, it is so lovely
Thanks,
to see you.
Dan.
You're the best at what you do. I absolutely love you. Thank you. Now, coming up in Uncancelled, how did the publishing industry become the latest battleground in the war against cancel culture? Columnist Rod Liddell joins me. But first, will today's migrant tragedy in the Channel finally force our government to take meaningful action to solve the crisis? I'll discuss that with my panel in the Media Buzz next, and bring you more of tomorrow's front pages too.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
I have to tell you, folks, something crazy just happened. One of our cameras broke, although that does happen every now and then at GB News. However, Sally Morgan guarantees me that it's because of her psychic energy in the studio, and one of our cameras is gone. So there you go. She's a woman with real powers. But let's return now, if it works, to tomorrow's news tonight in our Media Buzz. And more front pages have just been delivered. Here's the Daily Telegraph's front page on the migrant tragedy. Dozens of bodies, including those of 5 women and a young girl, were found in the sea after a flimsy boat likened to a blow-up paddling pool in a garden capsized and sank 6 miles off the coast of Calais. The Independent also leads with the 31 migrant deaths today as campaigners reportedly call for safer routes to the UK. The Guardian also follows the tragedy in the Channel. They quote Enver Solomon, Chief Executive of the Refugee Council, on the front, asking how many tragedies like this must we see before the government fundamentally changes its approach by committing to an expansion of safe routes. Not the solution that I would go for, that's for sure. The Eye describes those tragic migrants as having died in search of a better life and report that Briton Patel is under pressure from Tory MPs to stop the increase in crossings. They also report that 4 suspected traffickers were arrested near the Belgian border. The Sun has a stark and simple headline: shameful. The paper describes French police as idly looking on as the raft began its fateful journey. Let me bring in tonight's superstar panel on this, the columnist Amanda Patel, co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism for Equality, Albie Amankona, and the political and royal commentator Daisy McAndrew. So we found out earlier today on this migrant crisis tragedy that it was actually a fishing boat that sounded the alarm after spotting several people at sea off the coast of France as GBNews filmed other boats in the area. And our presenter Nigel Farage was there.
These people took off from a French beach. The wind would have been straight on the shore. There would have been a little bit of a surf running. They would have taken water from the moment they left the beach. They must be, I mean, I'm not warm and it's damp and it's, you know, they must be very, very cold. And I would think, you know, a lot of people dying of hypothermia is a real risk.
The French Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin tonight described the migrant boat as very frail and said he doesn't think there will be any other survivors despite the ongoing rescue operation. The International Organisation for Migration said it was the biggest single loss of life in the Channel since its records began in 2014, and the Prime Minister said he was appalled by what's happened.
I just want to say that I'm shocked and appalled and deeply saddened by the loss of life at sea in the Channel. I think that the details are still coming in, but more than 20 people have lost their lives, as you know. And my thoughts and sympathies are, first of all, with the victims and their families. And it's an appalling thing that they have suffered. But I also want to say that this disaster underscores how dangerous it is to cross the Channel in this way.
Amanda Patel, the issue that I have is that a tragedy like this was absolutely inevitable. I've been covering this story for the past 18 months. On the show, over the past couple of weeks, I have actually been showing the footage of the French police watching these completely ill-equipped vessels, and they're not really vessels, are they? They're blow-up boats in a lot of cases, go into the Channel with 40 people on board, and they're doing nothing. So is it really going to take a tragedy like this to finally get the French, who have, I think, despicably exploited the situation for political gain for President Macron, is it finally going to get the French to actually do their duty and stop these boats?
You know the answer to that, Dan, it's no. The French will do nothing. I mean, I think, like most of us, you feel in quite a state of shock when that news first broke. There are about 50 people on the blow-up dinghy, you know, women and children. It's not just that women and children only matter, you know, but we were all waiting for this kind of catastrophe, not waiting for it, but seeing that it was inevitable. And if this isn't a wake-up call for the British government to realise that we have to stop these journeys. It's freezing out there. It's freezing outside our houses at the moment. What is it like on the Channel with people ditched into the water? And surely it requires much bigger thinking and probably the early demise of Briton Patel.
Albie Amankona, has your party, you're obviously a Conservative, has your party talked tough but failed to deliver?
This is a complete tragedy, and the Sun headline is absolutely right. It's totally shameful. The asylum system in this country has been broken for longer than when the Conservatives have been in power. And what we really need to be looking at is broadening the scope of how we look at this issue from not just the Channel crossing, because as long as we just look at the Channel crossing, it's like we're trying to empty a bath with a spoon. we do need to look at opening legal and safe routes for asylum seekers and make it possible for asylum seekers to apply for asylum to Britain in their home countries, so that they don't have to make so they don't in their home countries is what I said, Dan. So these people don't have to make the journeys to Europe in the first place, so that we can really break the business model.
But Daisy, that isn't going to break the business model, is it? Because a lot of these folk are undocumented because they know that they probably wouldn't legally gain access to the country.
But they're undocumented for exactly the reason that Albie was saying, because they can't apply for asylum in their home countries. This is the only way. That is absolutely right. And so many, well, if they apply from their home countries, which is pretty much impossible to do, they won't get access. And there is... I mean, I do slightly disagree that it's all the same problem. I do think that the Channel crossing is a particular problem. I mean, I was remembering today that I think it was Christmas 2018 when Sajid Javid was Home Secretary. I remember he cancelled his Christmas holidays because there was a crisis with the Channel crossings. That crisis was that 200 people had crossed in 2 months.
Exactly.
Compare that to now, when we've had 26,000 this year, and this year isn't finished yet.
And now it's no longer a problem just for the summer months, because the big business of illegal people smuggling is going to go on, and these absolute scumbag criminals don't give a damn how many people die. So I think it's our government responsibility. They've got the money, exactly. It's our government's responsibility, but it is also the French responsibility. Now moving on. Good Morning Britain's race beta-in-chief, Adil Ray, is under fire after suggesting that films about black kids are expected to be about gangs and drugs. This was incredibly strange. The bloke was interviewing Reggie Yates about his new film Pirates, which is about a group of friends looking for a New Year's party. And it's at that point that Adil claimed his light-hearted film was somehow breaking down stereotypes.
It's really good. I love the fact that you've broken down the stereotypes, haven't you? We think of a movie about black kids and it's gangs and it's gangsters and it's, drugs and all of that. But there's none of that, really. These are it's a coming-of-age story, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a coming-of-age story fueled by joy more than anything. And I think we've more than had our fair share of trauma-filled, issue-based movies,
Even though he recovered there, it's definitely safe to say Reggie Yates really wasn't impressed. Look at this. And I mean, who can blame him, to be honest? Those raised up, they tell a story, don't they? Because from Radhikanu now to Reggie, Adil Ray seems absolutely obsessed with making everything about race. Albie Amankona, you are obviously the head of an organisation all about conservatives and racism. Is Adil Ray racist, the way that he keeps on trying to make race central to every single conversation on Good Morning Britain?
I think his interest in race is certainly a little bit odd. I think it would be really... I mean, imagine if it was Piers Morgan that had made this kind of gap.
Oh, he'd be cancelled by the woke mob.
That would be happening right now. And I think we can't just excuse people for these gaffes just because they're people of colour as well. There is a lot of non-white racism that goes on in the UK. Now, I'm not saying this is racism, but often we speak about racism as something which happens to black people from white people.
Because, Amanda, that is the point, isn't it? If it was a white person on Good Morning Britain making this comment, ITV would probably have sacked them before the day was out.
I'm sure that's true. And the great irony here is there's a lot of ironies in this show tonight, Dan. The great irony is that Adil, he is this. What did you use that said? It's actually his comments are a career-ending comment. I mean, it is totally unacceptable. But the irony of that, again, irony on irony. He's the guy who got rid of Piers Morgan for being a so-called racist over Meghan. And the truth is that 4 out of 5 killings in Britain that are gang-related are among the black and Asian community.
Well, of course, Daisy, Adil Ray wasn't the bloke on the panel with Piers Morgan that day, but he has been very critical, hasn't he, of Piers Morgan, including on the show this morning, I was reading. I think we need to be a bit more critical about Adil Ray.
I mean... I'm not a particular fan, and I think that was really, really clumsy. But I do think the wider point about dramas and black characters and black actors playing black characters in dramas, I do think there are a lot of really lazy cliches about gangs, and that if and that sort of thing. I mean, a friend of mine is a black female director, and she's just been commissioned to do this big, I think it's Amazon, I might have got it wrong, so I won't name it, a really big glossy drama, and it's like Succession, but it's all about black, very rich black families in London. And she said this is so exciting for her,
and that
because
is great. And
it's against the cliche.
But Adil Ray, just stop your race baiting for one day, mate, please, God. Daisy McAndrew, Albie Amankona, Amanda Blattall, thank you so much. Do stand by, though, because I'm going to get you to nominate today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass very shortly. I will pick the winner. But next in Uncancelled, has the publishing industry been captured by cancel culture? Rod Liddell weighs in on that. But first, here's what's coming up on tomorrow's show.
Coming up Thursday on Dan Wootton Tonight, America's mayor and one of the most polarizing figures in US politics, Rudy Giuliani, will open up about the last days of the Trump administration, give his verdict on whether Biden can hold on for a full term, and reveal whether the Donald will return to the White House in an exclusive interview. Will cricket ever be the same after being rocked by a racism scandal? Dr. Akib Hassan debates in Uncancelled. Plus, I'll be joined by GBNews star Mark Dolan, body language expert Judy James, and my superstar panel, the former London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, Conservative commentator Dominique Samuels, and the journalist and broadcaster Sam Dowler. That's Dan Wootton Tonight from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Monday to Thursday on GB News.
And it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, has the publishing industry become the latest battleground in the fight against our callous cancel culture? Writer Julie Birchall struggled to get her book, which ironically is actually about cancel culture, published because Little Brown and Company dropped the title after she posted some controversial tweets. But the book, titled Welcome to the Woke Trials, How Identity Killed Progressive Politics, has finally been published. And one man who has read it is The Spectator's associate editor, Rod Liddell, who joins me now. So, Rod, does Julie's struggle illuminate how cancel culture has captured publishing now, too?
It's more irony for Amanda to talk about, I think. It's another incredible irony that here is a book which is about cancel culture, and it's by Julie Birchall. Here it is. And I haven't read it all yet. I only got it yesterday. And it's very, very good. It's very funny. And it looks at all the problems we've had in the last 10 years, whether they be to do with race, to do with transgender issues or gender issues, etc., 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 meticulously reported, and it was cancelled. And it was cancelled after they'd agreed the contract. There was no problem with the book. They didn't say there was anything wrong with the book. Don't forget, this is Julie Birchall we're talking about, who's a pretty well-renowned writer and has had enormous success with books over the last 30 and 40 years, a very, very good writer. And they cancelled it because they thought she was Islamophobic. It's beyond imagination, except that this is happening more and more often with books. And I know a very senior journalist, former journalist, who has recently written a book, and it would be explosive, and any publisher would want it, because this is a very senior bloke who knows all the powers within the industry and can drop a few mines and bombs down on a whole bunch of very important people. But he had a hell of a struggle getting his book published, because he was considered to be right of centre. And this is a problem. I've had the problem as well. I've written a few books, and there is within the publishing firms, there is now a coterie of people who try to stop stuff being published by people who they don't like. Now, the company who refused to publish this book was a publisher called Little Brown. So you viewers can do your bit by refusing to buy any books by Little Brown. And they publish a lot of books, and some of them are good books. One of the books you must refuse under any circumstances to buy is this book, which is The Great Betrayal by me, because I was published by Little Brown before all this happened. But I want
and you
nothing
wouldn't be published by them now, Rod? You would boycott them?
I'm having nothing to do with them. I would have nothing to do with them whatsoever. It was talked about that my next book was going to be with Little Brown. Not a hope in hell. I wouldn't go near them with a barge pole. But this is happening more and more often.
Yeah.
That in an attempt to make themselves seem woke, to seem au courant, to seem with the current agenda, they have committees of young people who are decidedly intolerant about what they wish their publishers to publish. And so Julie's book has gone to Academia Press in Washington, and good luck to it, because it's a good book.
Rod, it is really disturbing to think now that even folk on the centre-right are considered extremists in the world of publishing. But I actually think that's where we're at.
Well, I wonder if J.K. Rowling was trying to get a novel published today and hadn't had a hit with that wizard thing.
No chance. She would have no chance, Rod. No chance.
She would have no chance whatsoever. There is a growing intolerance, and we make jokes about the woke culture, and some of it is ludicrous and hilarious, and we can all laugh about it. But there is a very, very serious side to it, which is it silences public opinion. And when you get one of our most lauded and rightly lauded journalists silenced in this manner by the publishers in this country, that is something which we really, really should worry about, Dan,
And is the book good, Rod? Is it good? Because I'm desperate to read it, but I haven't got my hands on it.
What I've read so far is hilarious, yes. It's partly an attack on identity politics. It's partly Julie's memoir, which is always worth reading, because that woman, as Amanda, I'm sure, will agree, lived one hell of a life. It's very much worth reading. But the main point is that something has to be done to enable books to be published which are not supporting the current ludicrous identitarian politics line, which is shunned by, I would reckon, 85 to 90% of the population.
You're completely right, Rod. Thank you so much. I will say, even though I don't agree with their statement, this is what Little Brown said in terms of justifying the Julie Birchall cancellation. We believe passionately in freedom of speech at Little Brown. We believe that Julie's comments on Islam are not defensible from a moral or intellectual standpoint, and that her book has now become inextricably linked with those views. Rod Liddle will speak.
What a load of cant.
And what a perfect point to end it on. Time now for our Greatest Britain Union Jackass reveal. Let me bring my superstar panel back in now. Amanda Patel, do you want to kick off? Who are you nominating to be your Greatest Britain?
Simply, it's PC Palmer's little wife, Lizzie, who, remember, little beautiful blonde, married only for 1 month before he was killed, dragged behind a car, and now Palmer's law is going to be put before Parliament. I think her tenacity, this little girl who lost so much and is in such a short time achieved a change in the law, extraordinary.
Albie Amankoni, your nomination.
My nomination is Lewis Hamilton, who today wore a pride helmet in a base in Qatar, which is obviously a country which persecutes gay people. And I think he's shown fantastic allyship. And I think it just makes us all ask the question, why on earth are we hosting the World Cup in Qatar?
Mm-hmm.
And Daisy McAndrew, your nomination for Greatest Britain.
I am nominating Rod Stewart, who has done an interview and been talking about his wife Penny and her struggle with the menopause, and has said that he thinks we should all be learning much more about menopause. We should be getting lessons about it, which I thought was very brave and something I applauded.
Well, Amanda Patel, you've finally had a win, because you absolutely cannot dispute, can you? The incredible Lizzie Harper is clearly today's greatest Briton. There'll now be a life sentence for anyone who kills a police officer. My uncle Derek Wootton in New Zealand was killed as a police officer in the line of duty. So it's something I'm incredibly passionate about, and I think this law is so important. Amanda, your Union Jackass nomination.
OK, I've switched, Dan, sorry to throw you on this. Mine's Stella Creasy, who wants to take a baby into the chamber.
Sorry, you can't change your mind. He's up on screen. He's up on screen.
OK, I get two.
No, you don't.
OK, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Prince and the Press thing, who I just think is the most ridiculous person ever. It's not a journalist, but it would also be Stella Creasy, who wants to take a baby into the chambers, and that child will have post-traumatic stress disorder for the rest of his life.
Isn't that where you're going?
Amanda, I don't know
I think I've got sacked.
You've stolen my Union Jackass. So my Union Jackass was Stella Creasy for starting this whole conversation about making Parliament a more family-friendly space without even mentioning the fact that male politicians don't get paternity leave whatsoever. And I think that is a problem that Parliament really needs to solve. We need equality in the House of Commons.
And Daisy McAndrew, who was your nomination for tonight's Union Jackass?
Now, my nomination isn't a Brit, I'm afraid, but I have been told that's allowed.
Honorary, yep, you can do that.
He's an American hotelier. His name is Danny Vyas from Georgia, and he had a complaining client, a customer who was staying in his hotel, who posted as a TripAdvisor or similar review saying that nothing worked and it was rubbish, and he kicked her out along with her granddaughter because he disagreed. He said she's done nothing but complain since she's got here, and now she's put this review out. So he booted her out, which I think, well, it's not a hotel I'd ever want to go to.
Well, it's a double win for Amanda Patel tonight, even though she tried to damn well change her nomination.
I am sorry.
Omid Scobie. He's clearly today's Union Jackass because he's going on this documentary telling loads of porcupines about Meghan. Mate, when are you going to accept it? Your heroine is a big fat fake and you should become a journalist and start telling the truth. Amanda Patel, Albie Amancoda, Daisy McAndrew, my superstar panel today. I've absolutely loved your company. I've loved your company too. Thank you so much for being here. I am back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Headliners next. Good night.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. A cold feel tomorrow, but generally a sunny day. Come Friday and Saturday, however, we're in for much livelier weather. Very strong winds and some wet weather too. An area of low pressure is going to bring some snow showers through the night across northern Scotland, and actually here already turning very, very windy, those isobars squeezing together. For England and Wales at the moment, we've got this weather front sinking south. That's providing a lot of cloud and some drizzly conditions over the Midlands, South Wales and South West England through the evening. A bit of patchy rain later tonight for East Anglia and the South East. But behind that, clearer skies will bring a chill first thing. Temperatures down to 2 or 3 degrees. That's in towns and cities. Add on that wind and it really will feel pretty raw on Thursday morning. But generally it's a fine and sunny start. Now through the day tomorrow there will be some showers grazing the east coast of England, at times Pembrokeshire, Cornwall too, the eastern side of Northern Ireland. The showers in northern Scotland falling as snow over the